Hey there. Welcome back, Night Wanderer. I'm really glad you found your way here tonight. Before we dive into the darkness together, I'd love it if you could take just a moment to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy what we do here. And here's something I'm always curious about. Drop a comment and tell me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I love knowing that we're all scattered across different time zones, but connected by these stories. Now, settle in, get comfortable, dim those lights, let the world outside fade away. Tonight, I have 6 tales that'll make you question what's real and what's been waiting in the shadows all along. Let's begin. Story 1. The letter arrived on my 33rd birthday, which should have been my first warning. My mother had been dead for 6 years, but the envelope bore her handwriting, that careful cursive she'd perfected in Catholic school, each loop and tail exactly where it should be. The postmark was local, dated 3 days ago. I stood in my apartment hallway, mail scattered at my feet, staring at my name written in a dead woman's hand, Emma Catherine Voss. She was the only person who ever used my full middle name. My hand shook as I tore it open. Inside, a single piece of cream-colored stationery, the expensive kind she used to buy from that boutique on Main Street that closed down years ago. The message was brief. Emma Catherine, by now you've begun to feel it. The dreams, yes. The weight in your chest when you wake. The sense that something's watching from the corner of your vision. Don't fight it, sweetheart. This is your inheritance. Every woman in our family receives it on her 33rd birthday. Every woman makes her choice. I chose to run. I bought myself time, but not freedom. Now it's found you instead, as I always knew it would. In my jewelry box beneath the false bottom, you'll find instructions. Follow them exactly, or it will consume you the way it consumed your grandmother. The way it's consuming me. Even now, I love you. I'm sorry, Mom. I read it 3 times. 4. The paper fell wrong in my hands. Too heavy, too warm, like it was made of skin instead of fiber. My grandmother had died in a psychiatric facility when I was 7. I barely remembered her. Just fragments. Wild gray hair, hands that wouldn't stop moving, and the way she'd stare at empty corners of rooms and whisper apologies to people who weren't there. My mother had died of a stroke, sudden and catastrophic, at 56. We'd found her in her bedroom, collapsed beside her jewelry box, its contents scattered across the floor, like she'd been searching for something desperately in her final moments. The dreams had started 2 weeks ago, always the same. I'm standing in a forest I don't recognize, surrounded by trees with bark that looks like twisted faces. Something's behind me, getting closer, but my legs won't move. I wake up with the taste of copper in my mouth and a crushing pressure on my chest that takes hours to fade. I'd attributed it to stress. Work had been brutal, and I'd just ended a 3-year relationship. But now, holding this impossible letter, feeling the unnatural warmth of the paper against my palms, I realized stress didn't explain the way my reflection had been wrong lately. Not obviously wrong, just slightly off, like it was moving a fraction of a second behind me. Like something else was learning to copy my movements. I drove to my mother's house that afternoon. I'd been meaning to sell it, but couldn't bring myself to list it. The real estate agent said I was leaving money on the table, that the market wouldn't stay hot forever. But some part of me, a part I'd been ignoring, knew I needed to keep it. Knew I'd need to come back. The jewelry box sat on her dresser exactly where it had always been. Rosewood with mother-of-pearl inlay. I'd looked through it after she died, cataloging everything for the estate, but I'd never noticed a false bottom. Then again, I hadn't been looking for one. I ran my fingers along the interior, pressing gently until I felt something give. The bottom panel lifted away, revealing a shallow compartment beneath. Inside, a smaller envelope, yellowed with age, and something wrapped in black cloth. The envelope contained pages in different handwriting, a collection of letters spanning decades. The earliest was dated 1889, written in faded ink on paper so brittle it nearly crumbled in my hands. To my daughter, on her 33rd birthday. By now you've met it. The thing in the mirror. The shadow in your peripheral vision. The weight that sits on your chest while you sleep. This is the Voss inheritance, passed mother to daughter for 200 years. We do not know where it came from, or why it chooses our bloodline. We know only that it comes at 33, and once it comes, it never truly leaves. You have 3 choices. The next page outlined them in clinical detail, like a recipe for disaster. First, accept it. Let it in completely. Grandmother Agnes chose this path. They found her in the woods 3 months later, or what was left of her. The thing wearing her skin continued living in her house for 6 years before it finally discorporated. It seemed almost happy during that time, I'm told. Grandmother's husband said she was never more peaceful, but she wasn't grandmother anymore. Just something that looked like her. Second, fight it. Hold it at bay through ritual and routine. This is the path most of us choose. It's exhausting. It requires constant vigilance, but you remain yourself, mostly. The rituals are enclosed. They must be performed precisely. Miss even one, and it breaks through. Mother lasted 18 years this way before she missed a night. We found pieces of her all over the house. The thing left them arranged in patterns we didn't understand. Third, pass it on. Bear a daughter before your 33rd birthday, and it will wait for her instead. This is how it has survived so long, I suspect. We give it new hosts generation after generation, sacrificing our daughters to save ourselves. I had you at 19 for this very reason. I'm sorry, my darling girl. I'm so sorry. But I wanted to live. My hands were numb. I set down the letter and unwrapped the black cloth. Inside, a small leather journal filled with instructions in my mother's handwriting, and a necklace I'd never seen before. The pendant was strange, made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Symbols I didn't recognize were etched into its surface. I opened the journal. The first entry was dated 33 years ago, right after I was born. Emma arrived today. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect in every way. I held her, and I wept, because I know what I've done. I've given this creature a future meal, but I couldn't face it. I couldn't let it have me. God forgive me. Emma, if you're reading this, know that I loved you. Know that I tried to find another way. I spent 33 years researching, consulting with every expert I could find who wouldn't have me committed. There is no other way. There are only the 3 choices, and I chose the one that let me watch you grow up. I chose to be your mother for as long as possible. I hope you can understand. I hope you can forgive me. The rest of the journal detailed the rituals. They were complex, requiring precise timing and specific materials. Some of the ingredients were mundane: salt, silver, sage. Others were disturbing: graveyard dirt from a child's burial site, water collected from a drowning victim's lungs, blood from your own veins mixed with wine and consumed under a new moon. The final page contained a warning in handwriting so shaky I could barely read it. I missed tonight's ritual. I was tired, so tired. 33 years of this, and I just wanted one night of peace. It's here now, Emma. in the room with me. I can see it in the mirror standing behind me, but when I turn around, there's nothing there. It's smiling. It knows it's won. I tried to run downstairs, tried to get to the phone, but my legs won't work right anymore. They're moving, but not the way I'm telling them to. It's learning. It's figuring out how to puppeteer me. Soon it won't need my cooperation at all. The necklace, Emma. Wear the necklace. It won't stop it, but it slows it down. Gives you time to decide. I love you. I'm so sore. The entry ended mid-word, a long scratch of ink trailing off the page. I sat on my mother's bed, surrounded by the documentation of generational horror, and tried to process what I was learning. Every woman in my family for 200 years had been stalked by something that waited until they turned 33. My mother had tried to cheat it by having me young. She'd bought herself 3 decades, but in the end, it had claimed her anyway. And now it was my turn. I looked up at the mirror above her dresser. My reflection looked back at me, normal, ordinary, except, was that a shadow behind me? I spun around. Nothing. Just the empty room. But when I looked back at the mirror, the shadow was still there. Darker now, more defined. It was learning to show itself. I grabbed the necklace with shaking hands and fastened it around my neck. The metal was cold, so cold it burned. The moment the clasp clicked shut, the shadow in the mirror vanished. The pressure on my chest, which I'd grown so accustomed to, I'd stopped noticing it, suddenly lifted. I could breathe again, but I knew this was temporary. The necklace was a barrier, not a solution. Eventually, I'd have to choose, accept the thing, and let it consume me, fight it for the rest of my life through exhausting rituals, or have a daughter and damn her to the same fate. Some inheritance. I spent the next week researching my family history, trying to find the origin point. The trail went cold in the 1820s, with a woman named Constance Voss, who'd emigrated from Germany. There were fragmentary records suggesting she'd been part of some kind of religious community before leaving Europe abruptly. One document, a letter from a distant relative, mentioned that Constance had been touched by something in the old forest and was never right after. The dreams intensified despite the necklace. Now, when I woke up, I found things moved in my apartment. My coffee mug in the freezer, my shoes on the wrong feet. My reflection in the bathroom mirror always seemed to be looking at something just over my shoulder. I started the rituals. They were as awful as they sounded. The first one required me to fast for 3 days, then drink a mixture of wine and my own blood while reciting words in a language I didn't recognize. I vomited immediately, my body rejecting the foulness of it. But afterward, for just a little while, I felt lighter. The shadow in my peripheral vision retreated. 2 days later, I had to perform another ritual. This one sent me to a cemetery at midnight to collect dirt from a child's grave. I felt like a monster scraping earth from a headstone that read, "Beloved daughter, age 7." But the alternative was worse. This became my life. Every few days, another ritual, each one more demanding, more invasive, more soul-crushing than the last. I lost weight. I stopped seeing friends. I called in sick to work so often they gave me an ultimatum: get my act together or find another job. I was becoming my grandmother, the wild-eyed woman who talked to corners, the woman who died in a psychiatric facility, probably still fighting her 33rd year, even decades later. 1 month in, I missed a ritual. Not intentionally. I'd simply lost track of time. And when I looked at the calendar, I realized I was 4 hours late. That night, it broke through. I woke to find myself standing in my kitchen with no memory of getting there. My hands were submerged in the sink, scrubbing dishes with mechanical precision. But I hadn't put myself there. I tried to stop, to pull my hands from the water, but they kept moving without me. "Hello, Emma Catherine." The voice came from my own throat, but I hadn't spoken. It was my voice, but the cadence was wrong, the inflection alien. My hands finally stopped moving. I stared at them, watching water drip from my fingers, feeling the disconnect between intention and action. "You're persistent," the voice continued, still using my mouth. "Your mother was too. But she was tired. You're tired. Why fight what's inevitable?" I tried to speak, but found I couldn't. It had my voice. I was a passenger. "Let me show you what I can give you," it said. My body walked to the mirror. The reflection showed me, but wrong. My expression was serene, almost blissful. My eyes were brighter. I looked healthy, vibrant, more alive than I'd felt in weeks. "This is what acceptance looks like," it said. "No more exhaustion, no more rituals, just peace, just me, taking care of everything. You can rest, Emma Catherine. You've earned it." For a moment, God help me, I was tempted. The prospect of letting go, of releasing this burden, was intoxicating. I was so tired. Tired of the rituals. Tired of the fear. Tired of fighting. But then I thought of my grandmother, wild-eyed and whispering to corners. I thought of my mother, dying on her bedroom floor. Her last words, a broken apology. I thought of the letter. It seemed almost happy during that time. But she wasn't grandmother anymore. I focused every ounce of will I had left to grab the necklace. The metal burned my palm, but I held on. "Get out!" The thing laughed with my voice. "You can't fight me forever. Watch me." I yanked the necklace, and the clasp broke. The pendant fell into my hand, burning so hot I thought it would scar. But the moment my skin made full contact with the metal, something shifted. The thing recoiled. My body was mine again. I collapsed to the kitchen floor, gasping, clutching the pendant until the burning faded to a dull ache. In the weeks that followed, I made my decision. I couldn't accept it, couldn't let it win, and I wouldn't have a child just to pass this curse along. That left only one option: fight. But I'd learned something the night it possessed me. The necklace wasn't just a barrier. When I'd grabbed it, when I'd channeled my will through it, the thing had actually retreated. It had hurt it somehow. I started experimenting. The rituals in my mother's journal kept it at bay, but the necklace could do more. Over months of trial and error, I discovered that the pendant was some kind of focus. With enough concentration, enough will, I could use it to push back against the thing, to hurt it in whatever way something like that could be hurt. It wasn't easy. It required constant mental discipline, a meditation that bordered on self-hypnosis. But it was better than the rituals, more reliable, and it gave me something my mother and grandmother never had: offense instead of defense. I started to reclaim my life, went back to work, reconnected with friends, even started dating again. The thing was still there, always lurking, always probing for weaknesses. But now I had a way to fight back. Then, 6 months after my 33rd birthday, I found another letter. This one appeared in my mailbox with no postage, no return address. The handwriting was my mother's. "Emma Catherine, you've done what I never could. You've heard it. I can feel the change rippling backward through our bloodline. Grandmother feels it too. We're all connected to it, you see. Every woman it's ever touched. We exist in the space between life and death, aware but powerless, trapped in its collection. But you've wounded it, and that's given us something we haven't had in 2 centuries. Hope. There are 12 of us here in the dark. 12 women from 12 generations, all consumed by the thing that's hunting you. It keeps us, feeds on our memories, our identities, our souls. That's what it wants, Emma. Not to kill us, to collect us, to add us to its gallery of stolen lives. But you've shown us it can be hurt. If you can hurt it, maybe you can kill it. Maybe you can free us. The necklace is the key, but it's not enough on its own. You need to go to where it started, where Constance met it in the old forest. The coordinates are enclosed. You'll need to perform one final ritual, but not to hold it at bay, to draw it out completely, to force a confrontation. It's dangerous. You might not survive, but if you do, if you can destroy it, you'll break the curse for every daughter who comes after. You'll free all of us trapped in its collection. Think carefully, sweetheart. You've found a way to live with it, to manage it. You could have a normal life, or close to it. But normal means passing it to your daughter, should you have one. And it means grandmother and I and all the others stay trapped in the dark forever. Whatever you choose, know that I'm proud of you. You're stronger than I ever was. Love, Mom. I held the letter for a long time, feeling the weight of 2 centuries pressing down on me. 12 women trapped in some space between existence and oblivion, aware of their horror but powerless to escape. 12 women waiting for someone strong enough to fight back. And all the daughters yet to come, the ones who'd inherit this curse if I didn't end it. The coordinates led to a forest in Germany, not far from where Constance Voss had lived before immigrating. I booked a flight for the following week. I'm writing this from a hotel room in Munich. Tomorrow, I'll drive to the forest. I'll perform the ritual that will draw the thing out completely. Force it into a confrontation it can't retreat from. I'll either destroy it and free 12 generations of women from their imprisonment, or I'll fail and become the 13th soul in its collection. The necklace sits on the desk in front of me, its dark metal seeming to pulse in the lamplight. I've been practicing, building up my will, preparing for the fight of my life. I'm terrified. I won't pretend otherwise. But I'm also angry. Angry at what this thing has taken from my family. Angry at the choice it forced on my mother. Angry at 200 years of suffering. Tomorrow, one way or another, it ends. If you're reading this and I haven't returned to update it, then I failed. I'm sorry. To whoever inherits this burden next, know that I tried. Know that it can be hurt. Don't give up. But I don't plan to fail. I've spent 6 months learning to hurt this thing, and tomorrow I'm going to do more than hurt it. I'm going to kill it, or die trying. Story 2. The Millbrook Shopping Center was built on the site of a Victorian asylum that burned down in 1952. 23 patients died in the fire, trapped in locked wards, while nurses fled when they excavated for the mall's foundation in 1985. They found the basement level largely intact, a maze of chambers and corridors that the developers decided to incorporate into the building's infrastructure, storage spaces, maintenance access, the long tiled hallways that connected the anchor stores. I'd learned this from Gerald, the senior custodian, during my first week as overnight security. He'd worked at Millbrook for 30 years and seemed to take pleasure in unsettling the new hires with the building's history. They say you can still smell smoke sometimes, Gerald told me, leaning on his mop while I made my rounds, down in the sub-basement. And sometimes the smoke alarms go off even though there's no fire, always in the same section too. The old hydrotherapy wing. I smiled politely. I didn't believe in ghosts. I believed in steady paychecks and health insurance, both of which this job provided. If I had to spend my nights walking empty corridors in a building with a tragic past, That was fine. Tragic pasts don't pay rent. The Millbrook Shopping Center was a relic of the 80s mall boom, now slowly dying as shopping moved online. Half the storefronts were empty. The food court was down to 3 vendors. On weeknights, the place cleared out by 9, leaving me alone with Gerald, the maintenance crew, and a handful of overnight stalkers. My routine was simple. Walk the mall perimeter every hour. Check that all entrances were secure. Make sure no one was hiding in the building after close. The rest of the time, I sat in the security office, watching grainy black and white monitors and trying not to fall asleep. The first incident happened in my 3rd week. I was doing my 2 a.m. rounds when I saw movement in my peripheral vision. A figure walking quickly across the intersection of 2 corridors about 50 feet ahead. I called out, but got no response. I jogged to the intersection, but both hallways were empty. I checked the nearest stores. All locked, gates down, lights off. I radioed Gerald to see if any of his crew were in that section. He confirmed they were all working the north wing. Probably just fatigue, I told myself. The mind plays tricks in empty buildings at night. But then it happened again, and again. Always the same pattern. A figure in the distance, moving quickly, gone before I could get close. After the 5th sighting, I started paying attention to details. The figure was small, child-sized. It wore what looked like a white gown or dress, and it was always heading toward the same section of the mall. The section built directly over the asylum's old hydrotherapy wing. I didn't mention it to anyone. I needed this job, and I'm seeing ghost children wasn't the kind of thing that led to continued employment. Instead, I started documenting. I kept a notebook, recording each sighting, time, location, direction of movement. A pattern emerged. The figure appeared most frequently between 2 and 4 a.m., always moving south, always toward the same destination. 6 weeks into the job, I decided to stake out the area. I positioned myself at the end of the south corridor, in an alcove where I could watch without being easily seen. Then I waited. At 2:47 a.m., I heard footsteps. Light, quick, the sound of small, bare feet on tile. I pressed myself against the wall and watched. A child emerged from the intersecting hallway. A girl, maybe 10 years old, wearing a faded white nightgown that hung to her ankles. Her feet were bare and dirty. Her hair was long and tangled. She moved with purpose, not looking left or right, heading straight for the door marked Maintenance Access, Authorized Personnel Only. She reached for the handle. Her hand passed through it. I stopped breathing. The girl stood there for a moment, staring at the door as if confused. Then she tried again, reaching for the handle with more determination. Her hand passed through again and again. She began trying frantically, increasingly agitated, her movements becoming jerky and desperate. Then she turned her head and looked directly at me. Her eyes were empty sockets, black and hollow. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran, my heart hammering, my breath coming in gasps. I didn't stop until I reached the security office, where I locked the door and tried to convince myself I'd imagined the whole thing. But I hadn't. I knew I hadn't. The next night, Gerald found me checking that same maintenance door during my rounds. "You'll see her too, don't you?" he said quietly. I didn't answer right away. Finally, "How long have you known?" "Since the beginning, since they opened this place. She's not the only one, but she's the most active, the most desperate." He lit a cigarette despite the no-smoking policy. Her name was Alice Crowther. She was 8 years old when the fire started. They found her body right about where that maintenance door is now. She'd been trying to get out. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? He had a point. Besides, she's harmless. They all are. They're just stuck, trying to finish what they were doing when they died. Alice is trying to escape a fire that happened 70 years ago. That's horrible. Yeah. Gerald took a long drag. It is. I should have quit, or any rational person would have. But the thing about poverty is it makes you negotiate with the irrationale. I needed the job. And Gerald was right. Alice wasn't threatening, just tragic. I started leaving the maintenance door propped open on my rounds. I told myself I was just checking the hinges, making sure it wasn't sticking. But really, I was hoping that maybe, somehow, Alice would find her way through. That maybe if the door was open, she could finish her escape. It didn't work. She was trapped in her loop, reaching for a handle that no longer existed in her version of reality. The others started appearing after that, like Alice had opened a door I couldn't close. I saw a nurse running down the corridor, looking back over her shoulder in terror at something I couldn't see. An old man in pajamas shuffling along, muttering to himself. A woman in a straitjacket struggling against restraints that were no longer there. None of them acknowledged me. They were all locked in their final moments, replaying them endlessly. Except for Alice. She'd looked right at me. She'd seen me. 2 months into the job, I came in for my shift to find Gerald in the security office, looking pale. "We've got a problem," he said. Alice was spotted by one of the stalkers. Kid freaked out, quit on the spot. Management's asking questions. What did you tell them? That the kid was probably high. But if it happens again, they're going to start investigating. Maybe bring in people to do an evaluation of the building. And if they decide the place is affecting employees' mental health. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. We'd both be out of work. What do we do? Gerald was quiet for a long time. Finally, there's a guy, calls himself a spiritual consultant, helps businesses with this kind of problem discreetly. I've got his number. The consultant's name was Richard Thorne. He arrived the next week dressed in an expensive suit, carrying a leather briefcase. He looked more like a lawyer than any paranormal investigator I'd imagined. "I understand you have residents," he said, settling into a chair in the security office. "Residents? Spirits. Ghosts. Whatever you prefer to call them. Entities that haven't moved on." He opened his briefcase and removed a tablet. "Tell me everything." We did. Gerald covered the history. I described the sightings. Richard took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When we finished, he nodded. This is relatively straightforward. Traumatic deaths, particularly en masse, can create what we call impression hauntings. The events are so emotionally charged they leave an imprint on the location. Most of what you're seeing is just that. Impressions. Recordings playing on a loop. Most, I asked. The girl is different. You said she made eye contact, showed awareness of your presence. That's not an impression. That's a genuine consciousness. Still present, still aware. He tapped his tablet. She's the one we need to focus on. Why is she different? Could be several reasons. Strength of will. Unfinished business. Sometimes it's just random, like surviving a disaster when others don't. But she's the one keeping the others visible. She's a beacon, making the veil thin enough that you can see the impressions. If we can help her move on, the others will fade. How? We find out what she needs, what's keeping her here. He stood. I'll need to observe her. Can you show me where she appears? We took him on a tour of Alice's route. Richard walked slowly, occasionally stopping to touch a wall or close his eyes in concentration. When we reached the maintenance door, he spent several minutes examining it. "This is it," he said finally. "This is where her consciousness is strongest. This is where she died." "Gerald told me," I said. "Yes, but I mean, this is where she is. Right now. Always. When you see her walk in the corridors, you're seeing her intention, her will manifesting, but her actual consciousness, her core self, is here, trapped in her final moment." He reached out and placed his palm flat against the door. "Alice," he said softly, "my name is Richard. I'm here to help you." Nothing happened. The corridor remained empty. "She appears between 2 and 4 a.m., I said. "Time is irrelevant to her. She's experiencing one endless moment, but she might be more capable of interaction when the veil is thinnest, which in this location seems to be early morning." He checked his watch. "I'll come back tonight. 2 a.m. Both of you should be here." Richard returned at 1:30. He'd changed into our casual clothes and brought equipment: electromagnetic field readers, temperature sensors, and a digital voice recorder. "Most of this is just for documentation," he explained. "The real work is communication. If I can talk to her, understand what she needs, we can help her let go." We waited. At 2:43, the temperature in the corridor dropped suddenly. My breath misted. The EMF reader began beeping, and Alice appeared. She materialized about 20 feet away, that same desperate purpose in her movement. Richard stepped into her path. "Alice," he said calmly. "Alice Crowther. Can you hear me?" She kept walking directly toward him. I tensed, not sure what would happen if a ghost walked through a living person. But at the last moment, she stopped. Her head tilted, those hollow eyes fixing on Richard. "Hello, Alice," he said gently. "My name is Richard. I know you're trying to escape the fire. I know you're trying to get through this door." Alice's mouth moved. No sound came out, but I could read her lips. "Let me out." "The fire is over, Alice. It was a long time ago. You're safe now." "Let me out," more insistent. "I will. But you need to understand something first. The door you're trying to open doesn't lead where you think it does. You're not in the asylum anymore. The building burned. It's gone. If you go through this door, you'll just end up in the same place you are now. Trapped. Repeating." Alice's face contorted with frustration. "Let me out." "I will," Richard repeated. "But you need to look for a different door, not this one." He gestured around us. "Look. Really look. This isn't the place you remember." For the first time, Alice seemed to see beyond her immediate focus. She looked around, taking in the modern corridors, the fluorescent lights, the commercial tile work. Confusion crossed her face. The asylum is gone," Richard said softly. "You survived the fire, Alice. You got out. You're looking for an exit that you already found 70 years ago." "No," Alice whispered, the word barely audible. "No, I didn't. I died. I burned. Your body died, but you got out, in a way. You're still here because you're still trying to escape. But the fire is over. You don't need to run anymore." Alice looked down at herself, at the nightgown that was suddenly no longer white, but charred and smoking. I smelled burning hair, burning flesh. Gerald gagged. "I'm dead," Alice said. "Your body is," Richard agreed. "But you're still here, still aware. That means you have a choice. You can keep trying to escape something that's already over, or you can look for the door that leads somewhere new." "What door?" "You'll know it when you see it. Stop looking for the way out of the asylum. Look for the way forward." Alice stood still for a long moment. Then slowly she turned away from the maintenance door. She looked down the corridor in the opposite direction, the direction she'd never looked before. Light appeared at the far end of the hall. Not the harsh fluorescent mall lighting, but something warmer, softer, golden. "Do you see it?" Richard asked. Alice nodded slowly. "That's your door. That's where you go next." Alice started walking toward the light. With each step, she looked younger, healthier. The burns faded. Her nightgown became white again. By the time she reached the light, she looked like a living child. She paused at the threshold and looked back at us. Her eyes were no longer hollow. They were brown and bright and filled with relief. "Thank you," she said. Then she stepped into the light and was gone. The temperature returned to normal. The EMF reader went silent. The corridor was empty. "Holy shit," Gerald breathed. Richard was packing up his equipment. "That went better than expected. Usually takes several sessions." "She's really gone?" I asked. "Yes. She found what she needed. Understanding that she was already free, that she just needed to look in a different direction." He closed his briefcase. "The other entities should fade over the next few weeks. Without her beacon effect, the veil will thicken again. You might catch glimpses occasionally, but nothing like before." He was right. Over the following month, the sightings decreased. The nurse stopped running. The old man disappeared. The woman in the straitjacket faded away. The building felt lighter, less oppressive. I kept working at Millbrook. Still do, actually. The mall is circling the drain, probably won't last another 5 years. But for now, it pays the bills. Sometimes, late at night, I walk past that maintenance door and think about Alice. About how she spent 70 years trying to escape, not realizing she was already free. About how all she needed was someone to tell her to look in a different direction. I hope wherever she went, whatever came next, she found peace. And I hope she's not still looking for a way out. Story 3. The town of Mercy Falls held its lottery every 7 years. Not a lottery anyone wanted to win. I learned about it the way most secrets are revealed in small towns. By accident, through a conversation I wasn't supposed to overhear. I was 16, working the late shift at the only gas station in town, when Sheriff Drummond came in with Mayor Whitmore and Reverend Caulfield. They were deep in discussion and didn't notice me crouched below the counter restocking cigarettes. "It's been 6 years and 11 months, the Reverend said, his voice tight with anxiety. "The preparations need to begin." "We've got time," the sheriff replied, "and we need to be careful. That reporter from the city's been asking questions, the one doing the piece on rural communities." "Get rid of him," the mayor said flatly. "I can't just run off every outsider who shows interest in the town. That would raise more questions. Then control him. Feed him the story we want told. Mercy Falls, the tight-knit community that takes care of its own. Make sure that's what he writes." They paid for their coffee and left. I stayed crouched behind the counter for a long time after, my heart pounding, wondering what lottery they were talking about and why it required preparations. Mercy Falls was the kind of town people drove through without stopping. Population 847, one main street, 3 churches, and a whole lot of nothing. We were 2 hours from the nearest city, surrounded by dense forest and farmland. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and outsiders were noted immediately. I'd lived there my whole life. My parents had lived there their whole lives. My grandparents were buried in the town cemetery. I'd never thought there was anything unusual about Mercy Falls beyond the normal small-town quirks and gossip. But that conversation stuck with me. I started paying attention, noticing things I'd previously dismissed, the way adults got quiet when certain topics came up around teenagers, the way some families would suddenly move away, packing up and leaving in the middle of the night, and no one would talk about why. The way certain houses stayed empty, boarded up, even though there was always a housing shortage. And the way people who asked too many questions tended to have bad luck. The reporter the sheriff mentioned, his car ran off the road a week later. He survived but left town immediately. The piece about Mercy Falls never published. A new family that moved in and started asking about the boarded-up house on Elm Street. Their daughter got sick with a mysterious illness. They left as soon as she recovered. A teacher who'd been asking students about their family histories for a genealogy project took a better job offer in another state abruptly, mid-semester. I started doing research. The town library had a small historical section, mostly donated documents from founding families. I went through them methodically, looking for patterns. Mercy Falls was established in 1823 by Josiah Mercy, a preacher who led his congregation west to found a godly community away from the corruptions of modern society. The early years were hard. Crop failures, harsh winters. Half the original 50 colonists died the first 2 years. Then something changed. In 1825, the record showed a sudden upturn. Bumper harvests, mild weather, prosperity. Josiah Mercy's journal from that year included an entry that made my blood run cold. We have made covenant with the provider. 7 families came forward to draw lots, and the Cooksons were chosen. They understood the necessity. Thomas Cookson walked into the forest at sunset on the first day of September. He did not return, but the next morning, the blighted crops were restored. The provider has accepted our offering. May God forgive us. 7 families, a lottery, an offering. I kept reading. Every 7 years, the same pattern. A brief mention of the lottery, a name, a walk into the forest. And in the weeks following, notes about prosperity, good fortune, bountiful harvests. The practice had continued for 200 years. I was still processing this when I found the list. It was tucked into a ledger from 1889, a piece of paper that had probably slipped in by accident and been forgotten. 7 family names were written in faded ink. Drummond, Whitmore, Caulfield, Harrison, Chen, Baptiste, Reeves. My family name was Reeves. I confronted my father that night. He was in his workshop building one of the birdhouses he sold at the farmer's market. When I asked him about the lottery, his knife slipped, cutting a deep gash in his thumb. "Who told you about that?" His voice was dangerous, unfamiliar. "I overheard, and I found records. Dad, what the hell is going on?" He wrapped his thumb in a rag, blood seeping through. "You weren't supposed to know until you were older, until you were ready." "Ready for what?" "To be okay. With human sacrifice?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" He sank into his chair, suddenly looking old. "Sit down, Maya. I'll tell you the truth. The whole truth. But once you know, you can't unknow it. And you'll have to live with it. The way all of us do." I sat. "Your great-great-great-great-grandfather was one of Josiah Mercy's original congregation," he began. "They came west full of idealism, wanting to build a perfect community. But the land here is wrong. It's always been wrong. The native tribes wouldn't settle in this valley. They called it the hungry place and made offerings to appease it so they could hunt in the surrounding forest safely. Offerings. Sacrifices," he corrected. The first colonists didn't know this. They built the town right on top of the thing's territory, and it took offense. It blighted their crops, soured their milk, made them sick. People started dying. The colony was failing. Until Josiah made a deal. Dad nodded. He went into the forest to pray for guidance. Something answered. It offered a covenant. The town would prosper, be protected, thrive. But in exchange, it required a tithe. One person, every 7 years, freely given. Freely given? How is a lottery freely given? The 7 families who benefit most from the covenant are the ones who participate in the lottery. We draw lots. One family is chosen. That family selects one of their own to fulfill the obligation. Selects? You mean murders? No one is forced, Dad said quietly. The chosen one goes willingly. Bullshit. It's true. I can't explain why, but once you're chosen, once you draw the marked lot, you want to go. You understand the necessity. You accept it. I stared at him. You're telling me there's some kind of mind control. I'm telling you the covenant is more than a simple agreement. It changes you when you're chosen, makes you willing. He met my eyes. Your Aunt Carol was chosen in the last lottery. She was 32, married, 2 kids. The night she drew the lot, she came home, kissed her children, hugged her husband, and told him she loved him. Then she walked into the forest smiling. I've never seen anyone look so peaceful. My Aunt Carol, the one we didn't talk about. I'd always been told she died in a car accident. The other families, I said. The ones not in the covenant. Do they know? Most suspect, but they benefit too. The town prospers. Crime is non-existent. Businesses succeed. Children are healthy. No one looks too closely at the why. That's monstrous. Maybe. Or maybe it's survival. The thing in the forest isn't going away. If we break the covenant, it will take what it's owed all at once. Every person in Mercy Falls. That's the price of betrayal. I left his workshop feeling sick. I wanted to run, to tell someone, to expose this horror. But who would I tell? The sheriff was part of it. The mayor, the reverend, the 7 families controlled the town. And if I exposed them, if I broke the covenant, 3,847 people would die. The months crawled by. Summer faded into fall. September approached. I watched my family with new eyes, wondering if this would be our year. Wondering if my father or mother or younger brother would draw the marked lot. The lottery was held on the first Saturday of September in the basement of the Reverend's house. Only the 7 families attended. I wasn't invited, not yet. Not until I turned 18 and was considered an adult. But I broke in. It was easier than expected. Everyone was focused on the ceremony. I slipped in through a basement window and hid behind a stack of old furniture, watching through the gaps. The 7 families stood in a circle. 14 adults, the heads of each household. In the center, a wooden box, old and stained. We gather to honor the covenant, Reverend Caulfield intoned. To provide for the provider. To ensure the prosperity of Mercy Falls for another 7 years. Each family head approached the box and drew a folded piece of paper. My father's hand shook as he reached in. They opened them simultaneously. 13 were blank. One was marked with a symbol I didn't recognize. Something that hurt to look at directly. Mrs. Harrison made a small sound. She held the marked paper. The Harrison family has been chosen, the Reverend announced. You have until sunset tomorrow to select your offering. What happened next shocked me. The other families embraced the Harrisons, not with pity, but with relief and gratitude. And the Harrisons accepted the embraces gracefully, like they'd been given an honor. The meeting ended. I slipped back out the window before anyone could discover me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The Harrisons had 3 children, 2 daughters in college, and a son, Tyler, who was in my grade. Who would they choose? I got my answer the next morning. Tyler came to school with an otherworldly calm. At lunch, he gave away his possessions, his skateboard, his gaming system, his collection of vintage comics. He hugged his friends, told them he loved them, and thanked them for being part of his life. "I'm going away," he told me when I asked what was happening. "Somewhere better. Somewhere I'm needed." "Tyler, you don't have to do this." He smiled. "Yes, I do, and I want to. You'll understand someday, Maya." At sunset, the entire town gathered at the forest's edge. Tyler walked to the front, his parents on either side. He looked happy, genuinely, radiantly happy. "Thank you," he said, addressing the crowd. "For everything, for this life, for this community. I'm honored to give back." Then he turned and walked into the forest. The trees seemed to bend toward him, shadows stretching long. Within moments, he was gone from sight. We waited. The sun dipped below the horizon. Full darkness fell. Then the screaming started. It came from deep in the forest. Tyler's voice twisted in agony, shrieking in pain and terror and betrayal. It went on for hours. People covered their ears. Parents shielded children, but no one left. We all stood witness. When the screaming finally stopped, Reverend Caulfield spoke. "The offering is accepted. The covenant is renewed." The crowd dispersed. Most looked shaken but resigned. This was the price. This was how it had always been. I found my father in the crowd. "You said they went willingly. You said they were at peace." "They are," he said. "When they walk in, the thing changes them, makes them willing. But the payment still comes due. The provider takes what it's owed. Then it's a lie, a trick. It makes them docile, and then it tortures them. Yes? And you're okay with this?" He looked at me with hollow eyes. "No, but I'm also not okay with everyone I love dying, so I live with it. We all do." I wanted to scream, to rage, to burn the whole town down. But I didn't, because he was right. What choice did we have? I'm 23 now. In another year, I'll be considered a full adult in the eyes of the covenant. I'll join my parents in the lottery. The odds are slim. 7 families, 14 adults. 1 in 14 chance every 7 years. Most people never get chosen, but Tyler's parents got chosen. My Aunt Carol got chosen. Maybe I will too. And the worst part, I'm starting to understand the appeal, the certainty of it. If I'm chosen, I won't have to live with the guilt anymore. Won't have to carry the weight of knowing I'm complicit in someone else's torture every 7 years. I'll just walk into the forest at peace, and then I'll scream. Just like Tyler did. Just like all of them do. I'm writing this down in case I'm chosen. In case I walk into the forest next September and don't come back, I want someone to know the truth about Mercy Falls. But I won't tell anyone, won't expose the covenant, because as monstrous as it is, the alternative is worse. 3,847 people for one, every 7 years. That's the math of survival. And God help me, I've learned to live with it. Story 4. The first video call that wouldn't end appeared on my laptop at 2:34 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'd fallen asleep watching Netflix, my computer still open on my bed. I woke to a chiming sound, the notification that someone was trying to video call me. I reached for the laptop groggily, expecting to see my boyfriend Chris's name. He traveled for work and often called at odd hours. Instead, the caller ID showed my own name, Maya Chen, me. I stared at the screen, confused. The call continued ringing. Finally, curiosity won over caution. I accepted. The video that appeared showed my bedroom, my bed, my sleeping form curled up exactly as I'd been moments ago. Except I was awake now, holding the laptop. So who was sleeping in the video? As I watched, the sleeping me stirred. reached for the laptop, answered the call. On the screen within the screen, a smaller version appeared. My bedroom, my bed, another sleeping me. Infinite recursion, like standing between two mirrors. I closed the laptop quickly, my heart racing. Some kind of weird glitch. A hacked camera, maybe. I ran a virus scan, found nothing, changed all my passwords, covered the camera with tape. The next night, it happened again. Different device this time. My phone, 2:34 a.m. exactly. An incoming video call from my own number. I didn't answer. I turned the phone off completely, removed the battery. But my tablet started ringing. My smartwatch. The television flickered to life, showing the call notification. Finally, I answered on my laptop. The video showed the same scene. Me in my bed answering a call. But this time, when the recursion started, I noticed something. In each nested layer, I looked slightly different. Subtly wrong. My hair parted on the wrong side. My mole on the opposite cheek. My expressions not quite matching. "Hello," I said to the screen. The me in the video spoke simultaneously, perfectly synced. "Hello." A chill ran down my spine. I ended the call. The next day, I told Chris about it. He suggested pranks, hackers, elaborate phishing schemes. He wasn't worried. Neither was I, not really. Just unnerved. Then the messages started. Text messages from my own number. "Stop ignoring us. We just want to talk. You can't avoid it forever." I blocked my own number. The messages came from different numbers, dozens of them, all containing the same profile picture. Me. Different versions of me. Some were photographs I'd taken. Others I didn't recognize, showing me in places I'd never been, wearing clothes I didn't own. I went to the police. They were sympathetic but unhelpful. Identity theft, they suggested. Someone spoofing my information. They'd file a report. Not much else they could do. The video calls continued every night at 2:34 a.m. I stopped answering, but that didn't stop them. My devices would ring until I turned them off. Even then, things got stranger. I started seeing myself. Glimpses in reflections that didn't match my movements. A figure in the background of video calls with Chris that looked exactly like me. Security footage from my apartment building showed me entering and leaving at times I knew I'd been elsewhere. Chris started asking questions. "Why didn't you tell me you were going out last night?" "I wasn't. I was home all evening." "The building camera shows you leaving at 8. "That wasn't me." He gave me a look that said he didn't believe me. I didn't blame him. I barely believed it myself. 2 weeks after the first call, I woke to find messages on my phone from people I hadn't talked to in years. Old friends, distant relatives, acquaintances. "Great catching up last night. Thanks for the advice about my job situation. Let's definitely get coffee again soon." I hadn't talked to any of them, but when I asked what they meant, they insisted we'd had long conversations, video calls. Some had even met with me in person. "We got dinner at that Thai place you recommended," my college roommate said. "You seemed really interested in what I've been up to." It was nice. What did she look like? Like you, obviously. "Maya, are you feeling okay?" I wasn't. I was losing track of where I'd been, what I'd done. My memories were intact, but everyone else's contradicted them. According to the world, I was living a parallel life I had no awareness of. Then Chris left me. "I can't do this anymore," he said. "The lying, the gaslighting. You're not the person I thought you were." What did I do? "You know what you did." But I didn't. He wouldn't elaborate, just packed his things and left. When I pressed mutual friends, they were evasive. Whatever the other me had done, it was bad enough that no one wanted to talk about it. I started staying home, afraid to go out, afraid of what my doppelganger might be doing. But that's when things escalated. I'd find evidence that I'd been places, receipts in my purse from stores I hadn't visited, clothes in my closet I didn't remember buying, food in my refrigerator I didn't recall purchasing, and the video calls continued. Every night, 2:34 a.m., showing me in situations I wasn't in. Me at restaurants, me at parties, me in conversations with people I'd never met. One night, I watched myself commit a crime on the video call. The me on screen broke into a parked car, stole a laptop bag, and calmly walked away. I recognized the street. It was 3 blocks from my apartment. I ran there in my pajamas, but by the time I arrived, the car alarm was already sounding. A couple was standing nearby, furious. And security footage, I learned it later, clearly showed me breaking into their car. The police were less sympathetic this time. Evidence was evidence. I had no alibi. I'd been home alone. No one to confirm I hadn't left my apartment. I was charged with theft. My public defender suggested a plea deal. I refused. I wasn't going to plead guilty to something I didn't do. But more incidents followed. My doppelganger was systematic, methodical, building a case that I was spiraling. Erratic behavior, petty crimes, disturbing social media posts from my accounts that I hadn't written. I changed all my passwords again. It didn't matter. She had access to everything. I started documenting, obsessively. I set up cameras in my apartment, recording constantly, proving I was home when the incidents occurred. But when I reviewed the footage, it showed me leaving, showed me returning, showed me doing things I had no memory of. The footage was wrong, or I was losing my mind. Chris's new girlfriend contacted me. Stop harassing him. I have screenshots of your messages. If you don't stop, I'm filing for a restraining order. I hadn't sent any messages, but when she forwarded them, they were from my number, my accounts, increasingly unhinged pleas for Chris to take me back. My employer called me in. We need to discuss your recent behavior. Apparently, I'd been coming to work drunk, making inappropriate comments, starting conflicts with coworkers, except I hadn't been to the office in a week. Working remotely due to illness. That wasn't me, I tried to explain. They showed me security footage. It was me, staggering down the hallway, slurring my words. We're letting you go, they said. Effective immediately. I was unraveling. My life was being systematically destroyed by someone who looked exactly like me, had access to everything I had access to, and left evidence that contradicted my every claim of innocence. The video calls became more frequent, not just at 2:34 a.m. anymore, but throughout the day. Every screen I looked at eventually showed her, me, whatever she was, and in every call, she looked more solid, more real. While I felt myself fading, I started noticing it in mirrors. My reflection was dimmer, less substantial, translucent, like I was becoming a ghost in my own life. She was replacing me. 3 months after the first call, I barely left my apartment. I had no job, no boyfriend, no friends who believed me, a criminal record, a reputation for instability, and she had everything. She went to work at my former job. They'd rehired me after I got treatment. She was dating Chris again. They'd reconciled after I apologized. She had my entire life, and she wore it better than I ever had. The video calls showed me what I was losing in real time. I watched her succeed at my job, charm my friends, live in my apartment that she'd redecorated. The worst part, she was better at being me than I was. More confident, more social, more successful. Everyone preferred her. One night during the 2:34 a.m. call, she spoke. Not in sync with me this time, but directly to me. "You can stop fighting now," she said. Her voice was mine, but colder. This was always going to happen. I'm the version of you that you were supposed to be. The you that didn't make wrong choices, didn't waste opportunities, didn't sabotage relationships. "You're not real," I whispered. "I'm more real than you every day. You're the ghost, Maya. You're the glitch in the system. I'm the correction. What are you? I'm what happens when someone looks at their life and wishes they'd made different choices. I'm the quantum possibility that became solid, and you're the version that's being edited out." The call ended. I understood then. This wasn't about identity theft or hacking. This was about replacement. Somewhere, somehow, I'd split into two versions. The life I was living and the life I could have lived. And the other life, the better one, had decided it wanted to be real. It was winning. I'm writing this from a motel room paid for with the last of my savings. I'm afraid to look at screens anymore, afraid to see how much more of me she's taken. I can feel myself fading, becoming less substantial with each passing day. Yesterday, I walked past a reflective window and saw nothing. No reflection at all. I think I'm almost gone. If you're reading this, if you find this document, please know I was real. I existed. Maya Chen, born April 15th, 1994, lived at 847 Riverside Drive, apartment 3B. I had a life. I had friends. I had a future. And then one night at 2:34 a.m., I got a video call from myself. And she was everything I wasn't. And now she's me. And I'm nothing. If your phone rings at 2:34 a.m. and the caller ID shows your own name, don't answer. Whatever's on the other end isn't calling to chat. It's calling to replace you. Story 5. Dr. Sarah Vance was the most respected neuroscientist in her field, specializing in memory research. Her studies on how the brain stores and retrieves memories had won numerous awards. She was 42, tenured at a prestigious university, and had recently published a groundbreaking paper on memory manipulation. That's what the documents in my apartment tell me, but I don't remember any of it. I don't remember being Sarah Vance. I don't remember my research, my university, my awards. I don't remember the face staring back at me from my driver's license, even though it's definitely my face. I woke up 3 days ago in this apartment with no memory of who I am. Not amnesia in the medical sense. I remember how to speak, how to read, how to function in the world. I remember general knowledge, how things work, the name of the president, what year it is. I just don't remember me. The first thing I did was call the number listed as Mom in my phone. A woman answered, clearly annoyed. "Sarah, it's 6 in the morning. This better be important." I'm sorry. I think something's wrong. I don't remember. Oh, for God's sake, not this again. Did you take your medication? What medication? Heavy sigh. Your antipsychotics. This is exactly why you need to stay on them. You know what happens when you don't. I don't understand. You have schizophrenia, Sarah. You were diagnosed 15 years ago. When you don't take your medication, you get delusional. You think you're someone else, or that your memories aren't real. We've been through this before. She talked me through where to find my medication. In the bathroom cabinet, a bottle of pills with my name on it. I took one while she stayed on the phone. "Give it an hour," she said. "You'll feel better. And Sarah, call your psychiatrist today. Don't skip appointments again." I hung up and looked around the apartment with new eyes. On the desk, I found a journal. My handwriting filled the pages, documenting my struggle with schizophrenia. my tendency to have episodes where I didn't recognize my own life. Today was hard, one entry read. I looked at my research and didn't understand any of it. Felt like I was reading someone else's work. Dr. Morrison says this is a common symptom. I need to trust the documentation, trust the people who know me. I am Sarah Vance. This is my life. It was convincing. And over the next few hours, as the medication took effect, I did start to feel more connected, more real, like the fog was lifting. Except, there were things that didn't fit. My laptop required a password. I tried several combinations based on information in the apartment. Birthdays, anniversaries, pet names, nothing worked. Finally, in frustration, I typed, "Note real." It unlocked. Why would I use that as a password? The browser history showed nothing unusual. Work emails, research articles, online shopping. But when I checked the deleted files folder, I found a video file, removed just yesterday. I restored it. The video showed me, Sarah, sitting at this same desk, looking directly at the camera. "If you're watching this, it means they got to you," video Sarah said. "They made you forget. They convinced you this is your life. But it's not. Your real name is Emma Harding. You're not a neuroscientist. You're a journalist who was investigating a pharmaceutical company called Nexus Corp. You got too close to something big, and they used their own research to rewrite your memories." I paused the video, my heart pounding. The medication was making me feel calm, docile. Was that the point? I kept watching. 3 weeks ago, you discovered that Nexus has been conducting illegal trials on memory manipulation. Video Emma continued. They can implant false memories, make people believe entire lifetimes that never happened. They've been using it on whistleblowers, journalists, anyone who threatens their operation. They did it to you. Everything in this apartment, everything in your phone, it's all fabricated. The woman you called thinking she's your mother? That's Dr. Helen Morrison, head of the project. The medication you just took? It's not antipsychotics. It's a reinforcement drug that makes the implanted memories stick better. This was insane. This was exactly the kind of paranoid delusion that the journal entries described. But in the floorboard under the bed, there's a loose panel. Video Emma said. Everything's there. Your real ID, your real research, proof of everything I'm telling you. They don't know about it. When they wiped your memory, they didn't get those last few hours where you hid it. Please, Emma, you have to remember who you really are. The video ended. I sat motionless, torn between two realities. Either I was Sarah Vance, a mentally ill scientist having a psychotic episode, or I was Emma Harding, a journalist who'd been mind-wiped by a corrupt corporation. Both explanations fit the facts. Both were equally plausible. I looked at the bed. It would be easy to check. Just pull it away from the wall and look for a loose floorboard. But if I checked and found nothing, that would prove the video was a delusion. And if I checked and found something, that would prove my entire life was a lie. I wasn't sure which terrified me more. The medication was making me sleepy, compliant. Part of me wanted to just go back to bed, trust the documentation, be Sarah Vance. It would be easier, but I pulled the bed away from the wall. The floorboard was loose, just like the video said. Underneath, a laptop, a folder full of documents, and an ID card with my picture, and the name Emma Harding. I opened the laptop. It didn't require a password. Inside were thousands of files, all meticulously organized. Investigation notes, recorded interviews, financial documents showing Nexus Corp's black budget research into memory manipulation, and photos. Photos of me, Emma with people I didn't recognize, but who the captions identified as my family, my friends, my colleagues. One photo showed me with a man identified as Jake, my husband. We looked happy, in love. I had no memory of him. According to the documents, I'd been married for 6 years. I found a video file labeled "For Emma in case of emergency." I clicked it. Jake's face appeared on screen. He looked worried, exhausted. "Emma, if you're watching this, it means you disappeared and didn't resurface after 2 weeks, which was our agreement. I've tried every way I can to find you legally. Now I'm making this video in case you somehow find your way back to your real life. I don't know what they did to you. I don't know if they're holding you somewhere or if they changed you, but please know that I'm looking for you. I haven't stopped. I'll never stop. You're my wife, and I love you. The work you were doing was important, but not as important as you. Please come home." His voice broke on the last words. I felt nothing watching it. This man meant nothing to me, but the grief in his voice was real. The love was real. Either I was looking at proof that my life as Sarah Vance was a fabrication, or I was having such a severe psychotic episode that I'd created an elaborate false reality complete with fake documents and videos. I called the number I'd been told was my mother. "Dr. Morrison," I said when she answered. "That's your real name, isn't it?" Silence. Then, "How much have you remembered?" "Enough. Emma Harding, journalist. You implanted false memories." "Sarah, you need to take your medication. You're having an episode." "Stop calling me Sarah. My name is Emma. Emma Harding doesn't exist anymore," Dr. Morrison said, her voice taking on a clinical detachment. "That person, those memories, they were erased. You are Sarah Vance now. That's not a lie or a trick. That's literally who you are. Your brain has been restructured. The neural pathways that made you Emma are gone. We didn't just hide them. We deleted them and wrote new ones. But I found my research. I found proof. You found what you left for yourself before the procedure. Yes, Emma Harding knew we were coming for her. She tried to leave clues, but those clues can't undo what's been done. The memories you're experiencing as Sarah, they're not false. They're real. We didn't create fake experiences. We transplanted real memories from another source. A real Sarah Vance who really did that research, who really has that mother, who really has schizophrenia. She died 6 months ago. Her memories were preserved. Now they're yours." I felt sick. That's impossible. 5 years ago it was. But the technology has advanced rapidly. You were investigating us because you found out about the early trials, the failures, the people who were left as vegetables or drove themselves mad. But we've perfected it now. You are proof of that perfection. You are a fully functional human being with a complete set of memories and identity. The fact that they weren't originally yours is irrelevant. I want my life back. There's nothing to go back to. Emma Harding's neural patterns are gone. Even if we tried to reverse the procedure, we couldn't restore what was deleted. We'd just be creating new false memories of being Emma. And frankly, Sarah Vance is a better person, more stable, more successful. Emma was self-destructive, obsessive, putting her career before her marriage. We gave you an upgrade. You gave me someone else's life. We gave you a life. And if you don't take your reinforcement medication, the implanted memories will start to degrade. You'll have no identity at all. No Emma, no Sarah. Just a blank consciousness trapped in a body. She hung up. I sat in the apartment, Sarah's apartment, Emma's prison, trying to decide what to do. The reinforcement medication was on the bathroom counter. If I kept taking it, I'd become Sarah fully. Emma would fade entirely, just a brief glitch in Sarah's schizophrenic episodes. If I stopped taking it, I'd lose Sarah too. I'd be no one unless I tried to rebuild Emma. Use the documents, the photos, force myself to relearn who I was. It would be like studying a stranger, memorizing facts about someone I'd never met. But maybe, eventually, I could become her again. Or I could try to find Jake, the man who said he was my husband. Let him tell me who Emma Harding was. Try to feel something for this person I supposedly loved. But would that be Emma Harding loving her husband? Or would it be a new person, neither Emma nor Sarah, trying to perform emotions she didn't feel? I looked at Jake's photo again, studied his face, felt nothing. I looked at my research as Sarah, read the papers I'd supposedly written, felt nothing. I was a ghost inhabiting a stranger's body, caught between two identities that both felt equally false. The medication bottle sat on the counter next to Emma's laptop. One would make me Sarah. The other would make me neither. I don't know which choice is right. I don't know if there is a right choice. All I know is that somewhere, my husband is looking for a woman who doesn't exist anymore. And somewhere, a mother is waiting for her daughter to take her medication and stop having delusions. And I'm sitting here, caught between them, with no idea which life is real, or if either of them ever was. Story 6. The first thing you need to understand about working at SETI is that we're not really expecting to find anything. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence is more about proving the negative, about ruling out possibilities. It's a job of elimination, not discovery. I'd been analyzing signal data for 3 years when I found the pattern. Nothing dramatic, just a statistical anomaly buried in thousands of hours of cosmic noise. Most people would have missed it. I almost did. It was a repetition, a sequence that occurred across multiple frequencies, always in the same order, always with the same timing. Not natural, definitely not natural. I ran it through every analysis tool we had, checked for equipment malfunction, satellite interference, human radio sources, ruled out everything conventional. What remained was a signal that originated from deep space, a signal that contained information, a message. I should have reported it immediately. That's protocol. But I wanted to be sure first. Didn't want to raise alarms over nothing. So I kept analyzing. The pattern was mathematical. A series of prime numbers, followed by what looked like dimensional coordinates, followed by something else. Something I couldn't decode. It took me 2 weeks to realize the coordinates weren't spatial. They were temporal. The signal was telling us when it was sent. And according to those coordinates, the message originated 847 years in the future. That's when I should have definitely reported it, immediately. But I didn't. Because the more I analyzed, the more I realized something that changed everything. The signal wasn't just from the future. It was from us. From Earth. From SETI. The signature matched our equipment. The encryption matched our protocols. The message was sent from this facility, 847 years from now, back to this exact moment in time. It was a message from humanity's future to its present. I decoded what I could. The mathematical portions were straightforward enough. They outlined a technology, a method for faster-than-light communication by exploiting quantum entanglement across time instead of space. The plans were precise, detailed, reproducible. The message was teaching us how to build the technology that would eventually send the message. A causality loop. The technology exists because the future sent us the plans, and the future could only send the plans because the technology exists. I built it. I know I shouldn't have. I know I was violating every protocol, every regulation, but the mathematics was beautiful, elegant, and I had to know if it worked. It took 6 months. I worked in secret, using lab time when others weren't around, claiming I was running routine maintenance. I built it in a storage room no one ever used. And when I turned it on, when I tuned it to the frequency specified in the message, I received a response immediately. "Hello?" appeared on my screen in plain text. "We've been waiting." "Who are you?" I typed. "We are CT, 847 years in your future, and we need you to listen very carefully. What we're about to tell you is crucial to humanity's survival." Over the next 3 hours, they explained, in 847 years, humanity would make first contact with an alien species. Not the way SETI imagined, not through radio signals and cultural exchange, but through invasion. The aliens, they called them the Harvesters, had been watching Earth for millennia, waiting for humanity to reach a certain level of technological advancement. Not to make friends, to harvest. They consumed intelligent life, absorbed our knowledge, our culture, our consciousness, and they were coming. "You can't stop them," Future SETI told me. We tried. In our timeline, they arrived in 2847. Within a year, humanity was extinct. But before the last facility fell, we managed to build this. A communication device that could reach back in time. Not far, only about 800 years. But far enough. "Why tell me this?" I asked. "What can I possibly do?" "Change the timeline. Humanity's extinction is a fixed point. We've tried preventing it hundreds of times across multiple iterations. But you can move it forward. Move it forward. If the Harvesters arrive before humanity reaches the threshold of technological advancement they're waiting for, they'll find us uninteresting. Below the threshold, we're just animals, not worth harvesting. They'll move on. You want me to delay human progress? We want you to collapse it. You have the plans for FTL communication technology. If you release them publicly, humanity will advance too quickly. We'll hit the threshold decades earlier than in our timeline. The Harvesters will come sooner. How does that help? It doesn't. That's the point. We want you to destroy the plans. Destroy your research. Set SETI's work back as far as possible. Create a dark age for space science. Keep humanity blind and isolated for as long as you can. I sat back, trying to process this. They wanted me to sabotage my own life's work, to destroy the most significant discovery in human history, to deliberately keep humanity ignorant. How do I know this isn't a hoax? I asked. How do I know you're really from the future? You don't. You can't. But ask yourself, does it matter? If we're lying, you destroy some research, and humanity continues on its current path. No real harm done. But if we're telling the truth, and you do nothing, humanity reaches the threshold in 2847 and gets harvested. Every human consciousness absorbed into an alien collective. Extinction. You're asking me to choose ignorance over knowledge. We're asking you to choose survival over enlightenment. Yes. I ended the connection and sat in the storage room for a long time. They were right, of course. I couldn't verify their story. For all I knew, this was an elaborate hoax, or I was having a psychotic break and talking to myself. But they were also right about the risk assessment. If this was real, doing nothing meant condemning humanity to extinction. If it wasn't real, destroying my research just meant we stayed in the dark a little longer. I burned everything, wiped the drives, destroyed the equipment, eliminated every trace of the technology and the message. Then I reported finding nothing. Just another dead end in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a mistake, that I'd destroyed something crucial. The more I thought about it, the more problems I found in future SETI's logic. If they could send messages back in time, they could send back more than warnings. They could send weapons specifications, defense strategies, exact coordinates of the Harvester's arrival. Why just tell me to delay progress? Unless they weren't from humanity's future. Unless they were from the Harvesters. Think about it. What better way to keep a species from advancing than to convince them that advancement leads to extinction? What better way to keep humanity isolated and vulnerable than to make us fear the very technology that could help us defend ourselves? I realized too late that I might have just done exactly what the Harvesters wanted. I destroyed the only technology that could have given us a fighting chance. Or maybe future SETI was telling the truth, and I'd saved humanity by keeping us below the threshold. I don't know. I'll never know. What I do know is this. 2 weeks after I destroyed everything, I started receiving new messages. Different frequency, different method, but definitely intentional. These ones don't claim to be from the future. They don't explain themselves at all. They just show images, hundreds of them, thousands, dead worlds, extinct civilizations, species that reached for the stars and found something waiting that they weren't prepared for. And Earth, over and over, Earth from space with dates attached. The dates count down, currently showing images dated 2847. Every day the date gets earlier, like something's approaching, getting closer. I tried to rebuild the communication device to warn future SETI or whoever I was talking to that I might have made a mistake. But I can't remember the specifications. They're gone from my mind, like they were never there, or like they were taken. The images keep coming. The dates keep counting down. Currently, they're showing Earth in 2847, then 2846, then 2845. At the current rate, they'll reach the present day in approximately 3 months. I don't know what happens when the countdown reaches 0. I don't know if I destroyed humanity's only hope or saved us from extinction. I don't know if the Harvesters are coming or if they're already here, speaking to me through the device I built, making sure I never rebuild it. All I know is that somewhere out there, something is watching, something that knows about Earth, about SETI, about me. And the countdown continues. I'm writing this down in case I'm not here when it reaches 0. In case the dates counting down aren't just images but a calendar, a schedule, an arrival time. If you're reading this, if you find these notes after I'm gone, please understand, I thought I was saving us. I thought I was making the right choice. I hope I was right, but I'm starting to think I wasn't. The images are getting clearer, more detailed. Earth is so vivid now, I can make out continents, cloud formations. Last night's image showed my city. This morning showed my building. The most recent one showed my office. The date attached, tomorrow. Whatever's been counting down is almost here, and I think it's been looking for me specifically. The person who found the signal, the person who built the device. The person who could have warned everyone but chose to stay silent. I think the Harvesters don't just consume civilizations. I think they start with the ones who tried to hide from them. The countdown reaches 0 tomorrow. At 2:34 a.m., I'll be here. Where else can I go? If I'm wrong, if this is all coincidence and paranoia, then tomorrow I'll laugh at myself for losing sleep over nothing. But if I'm right, if the countdown means what I think it means, then by the time anyone reads this, I'll be gone, and the Harvesters will have their first taste of humanity. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I was saving us. I think I just rang the dinner bell. The final image came through an hour ago. It shows my face. My exact face. With a date attached, today, and a caption in a language I don't recognize but somehow understand. We're here. Thank you for calling us. The sun's going down. 2:34 a.m. is 7 hours away. I don't think I'm going to see dawn. And if you're reading this, I don't think you will either. Not anymore. They're coming, and it's my fault. That's all for tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with me, for letting these stories unfold in your imagination. I hope they've given you that perfect mix of unease and fascination that makes the dark hours feel a little more alive. There's something special about sharing these moments with you, no matter where you are in the world or what time it is as you're listening. Before you go, if you enjoyed tonight's journey into the unknown, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. It really does help me bring you more stories like these. And I'll see you next time, when we'll dive into darkness together once again. Until then, sleep well, stay safe, and remember, some stories are better left untold. But where's the fun in that? Good night.